Beneath the relentless sun of Arrakis, the saga of Paul Atreides continues, unfolding like a legend written in the very sands of the unforgiving desert. We find Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, deep in hiding after the devastating betrayal that wiped out House Atreides. With their enemies tightening their grip on the spice-rich planet, Paul is forced into a life-altering journey, one that will test not only his physical strength but his mental resilience as well. Guided by Stilgar, the leader of the Freemen, Paul adapts to his harsh new world. The Freemen, with their unique culture and deep connection to the desert, offer Paul a path to survival, but it comes at a price. They don't simply follow leaders, they follow legends. And if Paul wants to lead them in a rebellion against House Harkonnen, he must first prove he's worthy. It's not enough to be the rightful heir of a fallen house, he must become something greater, something more in tune with the spiritual and mystical beliefs of the Freemen. As Paul immerses himself in the Freeman way of life, he undergoes a transformation, both externally and internally. Every grain of sand underfoot reminds him of the burden he now carries, the hope of a broken people. Meanwhile, his visions grow more frequent, more vivid, and far more troubling. They aren't just flashes of random events, they're glimpses of a future where war rages in his name across countless worlds. He's haunted by the possibility that his actions might ignite a holy war, something far bigger than mere revenge against the Harkonnens. Speaking of the Harkonnens, back in their stronghold, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is tightening his grip on Arrakis. With the spice trade firmly under his control, he plots his next move. His nephew, the ruthless Phaedrotha, is groomed for leadership, poised to become the next face of the Harkonnen dynasty. Feyd isn't just a warrior, he's calculating, cunning, and vicious, a dangerous rival for Paul in more ways than one. Meanwhile, Lady Jessica plays a crucial role in helping the Freemen see Paul not just as a warrior, but as the prophesied Muad'Dib. She knows how dangerous belief can be, it can inspire revolutions or crush them underfoot. Every day, she walks a delicate line, balancing her loyalty to her son with the Bene Gesserit teachings that still whisper in her mind. As the tension between House Harkonnen and the growing Freeman rebellion simmers, Paul faces one of the most pivotal moments of his life, mastering the art of riding a sandworm. This isn't some flashy stunt, it's a rite of passage, a demonstration of control over Arrakis itself. Only those who can ride the colossal, fearsome creatures that burrow beneath the desert can claim the respect of the Freemen. If Paul fails, he'll lose more than just their trust, he'll lose any chance of uniting them. The build-up to this moment is palpable. As Paul prepares for the challenge, he's acutely aware of the eyes watching him, not just the Freeman warriors, but also Chani, the fierce and enigmatic desert woman who's captured his heart. Chani represents everything Paul admires about the Freemen, their strength, their resilience, and their unwavering connection to the land. Though their bond grows stronger with each passing day, Paul knows that love alone won't guarantee survival. Paul stands at the edge of a dune, the wind whipping through his hair. In the distance, he sees the telltale ripple in the sand, a sandworm is coming. He steadies himself, ready for the test that will decide not only his fate, but the fate of an entire people. As the sun rises over the endless dunes, the moment of truth arrives. The ground trembles beneath Paul's feet as a massive sandworm emerges, its segmented body shimmering like burnished metal in the blazing heat. The Freemen gather at a distance, watching silently, their faces veiled and unreadable. For Paul, this isn't just about taming a beast, it's about claiming his destiny, earning the right to lead, and showing the Freemen he is more than just a displaced nobleman. With practiced precision, Paul plunges his hooks into the rough hide of the sandworm and begins the ascent. The worm thrashes, twisting and turning like a living mountain, but Paul clings tightly, riding out its furious resistance. He knows that losing his grip isn't an option. With each passing second, his strength wanes, the hot desert wind stinging his skin and sapping his energy. But he refuses to give up. Slowly, the worm begins to calm, and Paul takes control, guiding it across the desert. When the test is over, the Freemen break their silence, their cheers echoing across the sands. Paul has passed their most sacred rite of passage. From this moment on, he is no longer just an outsider, he is Muad'Dib, the one they believe will lead them to freedom. Stilgar steps forward, acknowledging Paul as their leader. Yet even in the glow of victory, Paul feels the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like the desert sun. He's taken the first step, but the path ahead is long and perilous. Meanwhile, Lady Jessica is carving out her own path among the freemen. As a Bene Gesserit, she's no stranger to playing the long game. She knows that politics isn't won on the battlefield alone, it's won in the hearts and minds of the people. And so, she begins training a group of freeman women, teaching them the secret arts of the Bene Gesserit. In time, they will become her allies, her eyes and ears in this unfolding war. Jessica isn't content with being just the mother of Muad'Dib, she intends to shape the future of Arrakis in her own way. Back in the fortified city of Arrakeen, Baron Harkonnen seethes. Reports of Paul's growing influence among the freemen have reached him, and he knows that the boy he once thought defeated is now a serious threat. The Baron's usual smug confidence gives way to cold calculation. He dispatches his nephew Phaedrotha to crush the rebellion before it can spread further. Phaed, who thrives on power and bloodshed, relishes the challenge. But beneath his bravado lies a deep hatred for Paul. This isn't just a battle for Arrakis, it's personal. What follows is a series of skirmishes in the vast desert. Paul leads the freemen in guerrilla-style attacks on Harkonnen spice operations. They hit fast and disappear into the sands before the Harkonnen forces can react. Over time, the raids become more than just a nuisance, they cripple the Harkonnens' ability to control the spice trade. Without spice, the Baron's grip on Arrakis weakens, and the political fallout begins to ripple across the galaxy. Paul's rise is not without cost. For every victory, there are losses, freeman warriors who give their lives for a cause they now believe in. Paul feels each loss deeply. He may have the mantle of Muad'Dib, but he's still a man grappling with the enormity of what he's set in motion. And then there are the visions, constant, unrelenting glimpses of a future drenched in fire and blood. No matter what he does, the vision of a galactic holy war in his name looms larger. One night, standing atop a ridge overlooking the desert, Paul confides in Chani about his fears. He worries that the rebellion is spiraling out of control, that he's no longer fighting for justice but for something darker. Chani listens, her presence a steadying force amid Paul's turmoil. She reminds him that the freemen follow him not just because of a prophecy, but because they see him as one of their own. With her quiet strength beside him, Paul resolves to press on, even as doubt gnaws at the edges of his resolve. Meanwhile, Phaedrotha prepares his forces for a decisive strike. He knows that if he can lure Paul into a trap, he can end the rebellion in one swift blow. But what Phaed doesn't realize is that Paul has anticipated his every move. With Stilgar's guidance, Paul orchestrates a counter-trap. When the Harkonnen forces march into the desert, they find themselves surrounded by freeman warriors and swarmed by massive sandworms. Chaos erupts, and the Harkonnen forces are decimated. Standing amid the wreckage of another Harkonnen defeat, Paul feels the tide of war turning in his favor. But he knows this is far from over. The final battle looms, and with it, the chance to reclaim Arrakis and fulfill his destiny, or be consumed by it. The wind howls across the desert, carrying the scent of battle. Paul stands at the heart of his growing army, preparing for what he knows will be the final and bloodiest confrontation. The time has come to strike at the very core of House Harkonnen's power and reclaim Arrakis once and for all. With the recent defeat of Phaedrotha's forces, the morale among the freemen is at an all-time high. They're ready to fight, ready to die if it means a future free from oppression. But Paul feels something else, an underlying dread. Victory isn't just about defeating the Harkonnens, it's about what comes after. As the freeman forces prepare to launch their assault, Paul gathers his closest allies, Stilgar, Chani, and Lady Jessica. Each of them knows that this battle will define their future, not just as individuals but as a people. Paul, now fully embracing his role as Muad'Dib, delivers a final plan. The freemen will use their intimate knowledge of the desert terrain to their advantage, while Paul leads a direct strike on the capital of Arakeen, where the Baron himself resides. Meanwhile, in the heart of Arakeen, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen grows increasingly paranoid. The once cocky overlord is now surrounded by fear and distrust, his empire crumbling as his enemies close in. Phaedrotha, nursing the wounds of his earlier defeat, seethes with rage. For Phade, this isn't just about loyalty to his uncle, it's about personal vengeance. He wants Paul dead, and he's willing to risk everything to make it happen. The battle begins with a sandstorm sweeping across the horizon, providing the perfect cover for Paul's forces. The freemen move swiftly, launching surprise attacks on key Harkonnen outposts. Explosions light up the desert as spice harvesting operations are destroyed one by one. In the chaos, Paul and a select group infiltrate Arakeen. Their goal is clear: take down the Baron and end Harkonnen rule once and for all. Inside the palace, Paul encounters Phaedrotha. The tension in the air is electric, the two young men facing off as mirrors of each other, both heirs to great houses, both shaped by war and loss. But where Paul has fought for survival and freedom, Phade fights out of hatred and ambition. The clash is brutal, each strike charged with years of built-up animosity. Phade is ruthless, but Paul's training and the clarity of his vision give him the edge. After a fierce battle, Paul overpowers Phade. Though he has the chance to end it all with a killing blow, he hesitates. Paul knows that killing Phade won't just eliminate a rival, it will send a message, one of bloodshed and vengeance. Instead, he chooses mercy. He spares Phade's life, signaling that his rule will be different. This act shocks those around him, including the freemen, who have long believed that mercy is a weakness. But Paul understands that if he's to lead not just as a warrior but as a ruler, he must break the cycle of violence. With Phade defeated and the Harkonnen forces in disarray, Paul confronts the Baron. There's no drawn-out battle here, Paul swiftly ends the tyrant's reign. But even as the Baron falls, Paul knows that his journey is far from over. Arrakis is now under his control, but with power comes responsibility. He's not just fighting a war anymore, he's shaping the future of an entire world. Back outside the palace, the freemen celebrate their victory, their chants echoing across the city. Stilgar, ever the loyal ally, watches Paul with a mixture of pride and apprehension. He knows that Paul's path will only grow more treacherous from here. Lady Jessica, too, observes her son, aware that while he may have won the war, he's still battling the darker forces within himself, the forces that could one day turn him into something far worse than the enemies he's defeated. In the aftermath, Paul is crowned ruler of Arrakis. His vision of uniting the freemen and reshaping the future of the desert world is finally within reach. But even as he stands at the pinnacle of victory, the weight of what he's seen in his visions continues to haunt him. The future he's glimpsed, a universe plunged into war in his name, still looms large. Can he prevent it? Or is he doomed to become the very thing he fears? As the desert wind howls once more, Paul looks out over the dunes, his mind already turning to the battles yet to come, not of swords and sandworms, but of politics, faith, and destiny. He knows the galaxy is watching, waiting for what Muad'Dib will do next. Dune, Part 2, is a gripping tale of power, prophecy, and the burdens of leadership. At its heart, it's not just a story about war but about what comes after, about how leaders are made, and how even the best intentions can be twisted by fate. Paul Atreides, once a boy thrust into a cruel world, has become a legend. Yet legends come with a price, and as the curtain falls on this chapter of his life, one can't help but wonder what price he'll ultimately pay.